Alright, after popular demand, we have the build showcase video. Wow, this video has been a long time coming. It's probably the most requested thing. Every time somebody comes to the stream, it's always, why are you using a bow and arrow? Blah, blah, blah. Finally, we're getting around to making it. We've got a ton of information to go over. It's a really tricky build. It's, obviously we're using Spark, if you couldn't tell. We've got really fast flying projectiles. And we've been running this build for like 7 weeks now. I think I've pushed it further than anybody. I haven't been specifically targeting damage or anything. It's an all-arounder. You can do all the content in the game, tier 4 everything, multiple people in your party, doesn't matter. We'll have some clips in the background of some boss kills. There's some content that I just don't like doing because it's boring to me. For example, I haven't farmed Arbiter because I don't care about anything he has to drop. But yeah, for what I'm doing, for how I'm playing the game, really happy with how far I've taken it. But we're gonna jump right into explaining how it works. So, tooltip for the nerds that think this number matters. Basically, every time you click the button, a bunch of sparks are gonna scatter out, and all this build does is scale the level of your spark. So spark scales in a non-linear way. Every single spark level you're going to get new projectiles. So most of you guys are probably sitting around the 27 spark level. You have less projectiles than me. And we're scaling projectile speed, pierce, and skill effect duration. So basically, every time we click, instead of the sparks hitting the enemy, the single target enemy, or any enemy, they're going to go through the enemy and they're going to come back in collateral. So, Spark is a funny skill because it's not like if I was to shoot through the enemy, the Spark was to bounce back, it's going to immediately redeal the damage. Per cast of Spark, per projectile, every projectile can hit 0.66 seconds, if that makes sense. So, it's not like every single projectile is going to come back and hit the boss every single time. Obviously, there's some geometry to them. They travel in really wonky ways. The faster they move, the more likely they are to come back and do damage a second time, a third time, a fourth time. The longer they're on the ground, the more time they have to span the ground with the projectile speed. And we just want them on the ground for a really long time, and we want them to penetrate the target every time with Pierce and come back to deal damage again. This is a non-crit build. The upfront damage is disgusting. It's got some of the best clear in the game. Before Autobomber existed, this had the best clear in the game. It wasn't even close. With the exception of Heralds, because they can pop screens, 8 or 9 screens when you scale them really hard. But yeah, we're going to explain how the spark level gets so high now. So also, this is the unbuffed DPS. If you get your buffs down, this is also with Temporalis, the whatever you want to call it build, the non-boss kill build. Yeah, 1.3 mil. But you gotta multiply it by the pierce. So you gotta multiply it by the pierce, and you gotta factor in things that are incalculable, like projectile duration. And we'll break it down a lot more later, how the damage scaling works. But we can just pop up the TLDR. Basically, your damage is not the same relative to the size of the area that you're in. So if this is your target over here, and this is where you're casting from, and these are your sparks, you're going to do more damage if they were in a hallway versus if they were in this open field. So you can't calculate spark damage from a tooltip. It is not possible. You can't calculate it from your POB. It is not possible. There's so many factors that matter, like how close you are from your target, if your target's stationary, if you have walls to bounce the projectiles off of, how long they stay on the ground, how often they pierce, how quickly they move. All of these things are factors that scale your damage. And a lot of our damage stacking is coming from things that you don't have numbers for. And this is how it worked in POE1. This is how it worked in this game too. If you want to check this out on your own, I can link it in the description. But there is no way to accurately calculate spark DPS. It's not like some warrior fizz skill that is like very simple. You can do the math on your own. It's weird, right? So hopefully this gives you a decent visual of how that works, but yeah, we're just going to explain, ignore that calculator, we'll get into that later. We're just going to explain how we are scaling these spark levels. So if I take my quiver off, my spark is probably the same level as yours, 27, okay? Put the quiver on, the spark is now level 40. What we're doing is we're using a widowhail. Increased bonuses gained from equipped quiver is the stat that we're hunting. We're getting this on jewels and we're getting this on the widowhail. So I'm going to start talking fast now, and if you want to slow the video down to 0.75, now would be the time. Basically, on your quiver, it needs to be a penetrating base, because if it's not a penetrating base, then the sparks won't penetrate, they won't come back to deal damage again, and no good. The sparks are going to die when they hit the enemy. So what we're doing is we're taking this +2 level of projectile skills, and every 50% quiver bonus we have, we're getting 1 level of spark, because 50% of 2 is, yep, you already know, 1. So every time we get 50%, 50%, 50%, we're going to get 1 extra level of spark. And also, the projectile speed is also scaling with this quiver bonus. We have 552% quiver bonus. The implicit at the top, this line up here, this corruption, we're scaling that as well. And the mana per enemy killed, we're scaling as well. The only stats that matter on these are increased projectile speed, 35% or more is what you want to shoot for. If you get any less, it's going to feel like shit. +2 level of projectile skills, mandatory, you have no choice. You can't get 0.5 if you have a +1 level of projectile skills, it will not work. And 15%, or not 15%, pardon, any amount of mana per enemy killed will service you greatly because we're multiplying these numbers. So essentially, with our quiver bonus, it's as if we have an extra 5.5 quivers equipped. So if you look at this page right here, imagine this second inventory slot had 5.5 more, and we just had the same exact quiver stuffed in all of them. I might be able to draw a funny visual. Yeah, so it's like we have more gear equipped than you, and that's why we're scaling the damage. So if you go over here, these emeralds are the other way that we're doing it. So because we have an Adorned, which we'll get into later when we explain how the Adorned works, what these emeralds do is if they're corrupted and they're working with the Adorned, they're going to multiply. Our Adorned is 96%, so it's going to multiply 15 by 1.96. And if you hover the outside, you can see what you're actually getting from it. So for this gem, we're actually getting 29% increased bonuses gained from equipped quiver. That means if we get 2 of these, we're going to get over 50%, and that means we're going to get a level of spark. So for every 2 emeralds, we get 1 level of spark with our Adorned. The breakpoint for this Adorned is 79. You can get a budget 79% Adorned, and you can get emeralds that have 14% increased quiver bonus, and the 14% when multiplied by 1.79 will be 25. And you can still only need 2 emeralds to get 1 level of spark. Okay, that's essentially how the build works. We're scaling spark super hard. I can throw up a graph right now of how the spark scales. It's not linear, it's better than that. If it was linear, the graph would look like it's going from the bottom left corner to the top right corner. By virtue of it gaining more projectiles every time and more damage every time, the damage is greater than linear. And it's the only skill in the game that does that currently, and when this build gets nerfed, which it will, that is what they're going to take away. They are certainly going to take away how many projectiles this thing gets, because I don't know how they're going to nerf widowhail. That wouldn't make any sense. And yeah, that's how that works. So got that out of the way. Now we know how we're stacking our spark levels, and we're going to talk about what the important stats of the build are. So depends on what tree you use. If you're using my tree 1-to-1, all we're looking for is mana, really. We want mana. The more mana we get, the better. We don't have energy shield, so we're trying to not get one shot, and we're just mana, mana, mana. We do not believe in mana regen around here. Mana regen is a noob stat. It's horrible. We have mana on kill, and that's it. We've got mana on kill socketed into the bow, 4%. And we've got gain mana per enemy killed on the quiver, and that's multiplied by 5.52. And yeah, we're getting a lot of mana every time we kill something. If you kill like 3 monsters, your whole mana bar just shoots up to the moon. It's gross. Also, the higher you stack your spark level, the more it's going to cost to cast. Currently, my spark is costing me 978 mana per one click. Every time I click, it's 978 mana. But when you're killing stuff fast, that doesn't matter. You can hold the button down. This mana looks like it's draining quick, which it is. Just hit the Maelstrom. That's what it's for. Use your flask. This costs 1 divine, and it's like one of the best items in the game for its price. So we're going to go over the gear now. Or we're going to go over the importance of the stats on the gear. We already went over the gear. Every single piece we get is going to have int and mana on it. That's all we care about. Energy shield as well because of Eldritch Battery. Eldritch Battery converts all of your energy shield into mana. And yeah, more ES, more mana, more int. We're going to whip out a calculator real quick and we're going to show you how this works. So let's drag this over here. CALC, it's actually short for calculator. We're going to take our gloves, or we'll do the helmet because the number's bigger and it looks better. Alright, 407 is the first value. This is the energy shield at the top. Okay, well I can't tab into the game because I'm not there. If you look at the top, the energy shield is 407. So we're going to take 407. Then we're going to add to the maximum mana. The maximum mana on this one is 172. Okay. And then int. If you don't know how int works, for every 1 point of int, you get 2 mana. Okay. So if we've got 25 int, that means we have 50 mana. But if you're a child or bad at math, you can just do 25 twice. And we get 692 mana from the helmet. Okay? So every gear piece is going to have as much energy shield as we can get, as much maximum mana as we can get, and as much int as we can get. But for example, if we took this helmet and instead of having 407 energy shield, it had, let's say, 391, and the maximum mana instead of being 172 was 184, and instead of the int being 25, it was 36, which multiplied by 2. I don't even think the int can go to 35. It can only go to... it can go to 30. Let's just say 34. Fuck it. 34. We're just going to do 64. Whatever this number is, it's 10 higher than what we had before. If your helmet had this, it would give you more mana than mine does. So keep that in mind that these three numbers are all weighted the same. So it doesn't matter. And also keep in mind that Iron Runes don't always give you more mana. Iron Runes give you 20% of what the energy shield base is. Sometimes, if the energy shield is too low, it will service you better to have maximum mana socketed into your items, because at the end of the day, all we're looking for is mana. So you got to do that for your gear slots, and yeah, it'll greatly benefit you. Now let's go over the Amulet. Amulet's straightforward. The three stats that are important to us: level of all projectile skills, or level of spell skills, which is way more expensive, keep that in mind, maximum mana, and percent increase maximum mana. You want percent increase maximum mana to be as high as possible. It's like 12% increase maximum mana is better than any single node. This is a comparable one. Raw mana gives you 12% increase max mana, but it gives you 10% increased cost of skills. So just for the sake of showing you, we're at 7696 mana right now. We unequipped our amulet. We're at 6525. Okay. So this is giving us a disgusting amount of mana. It's like 1100. This one also happens to have int on it. You don't need int. You don't need spell damage. And the base is irrelevant. You definitely don't need rarity either. But yeah, so that's out of the way. Dream Fragments, all we care about is the percent max mana. If you can get increased damage on it because you're rich, nice, that's awesome. The Ring, all we care about is int and max mana. Lightning damage is a plus. Lightning damage is going to scale your damage super hard. If we unequip the Ring, we lose like 100k damage. So a ton of int, a ton of max mana, and lightning damage if you can get it. That's also being multiplied by your ingenuity. Both of these are. So if you've got good corrupts like a 30% damage and you multiply it by 1.94, we're farming, right? This is like 58 or 56% increased damage total. Huge. Okay. That's what we're looking for on all the gear. Pretty straightforward. Just mana stack. Mana, mana, mana. Which means max mana, energy shield, int. Max mana, energy shield, int. That's all you got to think about when you get these. The Quiver, we've already went over it. Projectile speed, 35% or more. plus suit level of all projectile skills, and gain blank mana per enemy killed, as much as you can get. If you can get a damage corrupted one because you're rich, that's nice. It's going to scale your damage by a lot. I don't have any that don't have a damage, what's it called, to show you, or a non-corrupted one to show you, because I corrupt them all on stream because it's funny, and it's funny to burn money in front of people. But alternatively, with the implicit, if you're getting a corrupted one, you can go for skill speed. The reason we don't use the skill speed one, I'll show you now. It's actually more damage, but our upfront damage goes down. So we do less per click. The reason the DPS is higher, but the technical per click damage is lower, is because we can cast more often. The reason we don't use this is it burns the mana too quick. So yeah, no bueno. It's still good, it's just not as good, in my opinion. It's not worth the damage. It's not worth it. But yeah, outside of that, you don't need a Temporalis. You can swap out the Temporalis. And you don't need movement speed on your boots if you're, I don't know, a psycho, or if you're one of the POE2 ninja guys that just cares about damage. We're at 641 when we do that. Full buffed. Let's see what we get to. Sacrifice the skellies. 1.682 mil. Multiplied by your pierce chance, your projectile duration, and yeah, you guys get the memo. Also, make sure you have your curses, conductivity, make sure you got those going. Yeah. So let's get into the skill gems. Super simple. Obviously we've got Spark, we've got Inspiration, Arcane Tempo for the cast speed, Acceleration for the extra projectile, Considered Casting, decreases your cast speed but gives you more damage with spell hits. Then we've got Persistence. This doesn't reflect in your tooltip, so you see I equip it and my number stays the same. Right? You put it back in. You think it doesn't do anything. In reality, if you look at this number, 4.59, it goes to 3.28. This basically keeps the sparks on the ground for longer, so they have a better chance to come back and do damage. Important. Flame Wall, we just use this for a buff. It's only like 10% of your damage. Doesn't really matter. You don't need to have it this high level either. Just throw it down, right click, one button, you're good to go. Archmage, there are 2 breakpoints. You either want to get to 21 or you want to be at 19. You can corrupt these. Make sure you quality them first. You quality them, you slap a corrupt in them, and then you can put whatever jewel to level it up in it as you want. So for example, you could use a level 10 Archmage. You quality it up. You put a lesser jeweler's orb into it because this doesn't need very many sockets. And yeah, you corrupt it. If you get +1 to the corruption, then you can go apply a higher level skill gem to it, like a, I don't know, a higher level spirit gem, like a 19. And then you put in the 19, it's got the +1 corrupt, which makes it 20. And then you can put in Lightning Mastery, which pushes you to 21, which gives you a new breakpoint. The only reason I have Lightning Mastery in it, even though it's already level 21, if you see the non-channeling spells gain 9% of damage with extra lightning, that 9% isn't going to go up, but the additional cost to my mana is going to go down. So instead of that being 5% now, it is 4.95. So it saves you a little bit of mana every time you cast. But currently there's no way to get a level 23 Archmage. I assume that's the next breakpoint. There's no way to do it yet. But if that would go to 10%, then that would be a lot better. Okay, Conductivity. You don't have to have it this high level. I don't mind the mana cost, so I don't care. These are what we have socketed into it. That's Hex Bloom, Focus Curse, and Heighten Curse. Frostwall, we only really use this for when we swap to Trample Toes to do like 1-click damage or to skip through walls in Trial of Sekhemas. You do not need this at all. Skeletal Clerics, we have those on a weapon swap. They're only on weapon slot 2. We've got 2 of them. And we use those for the next skill, which is Soul Offering. We spawn in the skeletons, we sacrifice them. It gives you a shit ton of spell damage. Yeah, really good. Soul Offering, the higher level you can get this, the better. Basically, it's bugged. The Bone Spike itself is a minion. If it dies, the effect ends immediately. That's what it says it does, but when we weapon swap, the Bone Spike does die, and the effect does not end. So, a little bug abuse there. We've got a Danse Macabre, however the hell you pronounce that. That's not in English. We've got that. We've got Ablation, and we've got Minion Mastery to give it +1 level because it is a minion skill. That one's at level 21. The blink we have on weapon swap. Our blink's actually level 26, which pushes the cooldown to 3.2 seconds. Blink on weapon swap is overpowered. If you haven't watched my video explaining why we put it on a weapon swap, basically you put on Flame Blast. The cast time on Flame Blast is really low. You swap to blink and you can instantly blink around and you can remain able to dodge. And rolling in this game is broken because it gives you invincibility frames. And that's on a weapon swap. We only have that on weapon set 2. And then we've got Flame Blast, and what Flame Blast does is swap us to weapon set 2, and that gives us the ability to blink. So if we put our Temporalis back on, every time you see this little fire pop, you can blink, right? So I go back to casting, I can roll again, fire pops, I can blink. Infinitely, obviously, because we have Temporalis. But yeah, blink on weapon swap, that way we don't have to get Spirit. Okay, now we're going to go over why we don't use cast on shock, and the reason is, on this build it's just less damage. I've tested it a million different ways. You're compromising too much. You have to get Spirit on a helmet, and you have to get Spirit on a necklace, and if you're doing that, then they're going to be bad. I've spent countless divine trying to make it work, trying to make it worth it. If anything, you could just put in Orb of Storms instead of Frostwall and get some extra damage that way, but cast on shock with Lightning Conduit is not worth it. Your helmet will not be better than mine with the Spirit that it requires to get the extra 60 to get that online. We only have 100 Spirit total. It's going to stay that way. It is better. It is just better. If somehow, by the grace of God, you come upon the greatest amulet that has ever existed, they wouldn't be available for a mirror service because it's already corrupted. You corrupt it yourself, you get one just as good as mine and hit the corrupt. All I would do with it is put clarity inside of Archmage, because getting cast on shock to work is like impossible. And we have all the gear to do it, we tested it out, it's just not good because this isn't a crit build. That's not why it's not good, but crit really helps with making that work. But yeah, so no cast on shock, you don't need it. Obviously it's nice, it works with one focus pretty well, but we don't use it. And yeah, that's pretty much how the build works. I might be forgetting something, I'll probably have text on the screen if I did, but quickly, this saves a lot of skill points, that's the reason we have it here. If you put it up here, you probably play Gemling, that's okay. You can play this build with Gemling as well, just get a similar tree going. We put it here, it saves us like 7 points, and we can pick all these up with the Eldritch. And this is the best placement for Against the Darkness. I've tried literally everywhere else. My next 2 levels would go into here picking these up. If you want more damage, you can unspec these 3 right here, and you can pick up these 3 here. But the increased mana cost of skills is really bad, in my opinion. So that is like the goated damage version of the build. If you just wanted to do that, would take these 3. This would give you 4% more int, and these 2 would give you extra mana and a bunch of cast speed. Not worth it, in my opinion. But definitely go for it if you're that kind of player that just wants to do a bunch of damage. Okay, before you guys ask about the Anoint on the Amulet, we get Lightning Rod from a Megalo. The reason we get Death from Afar is because it's broken. You don't need to get Death from Afar. You can get something like Turn the Clock Forward, which is up here. This will give you some extra projectile speed. If you can get something like Preservation on it, it's really good. Anything that gives you extra damage on top of Lightning Rod is going to be like 100-ish div. It's super worth it. It lets you anoint Lightning Rod, and then you can anoint something like Polymathy. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce that. You can throw that over here, and that gives you 10% increased attributes. So yeah, I can't think of anything else. I guess that's it. You don't need this Prism of Belief Diamond at all. Budget versions of the build will be in the description. They work great. They can do all the content in the game. All my viewers, not all, a couple of my viewers have been playing it. But yeah, we're going to get into a Microsoft Paint, and we're going to explain just a little bit deeper how the breakpoints work for our Quiver bonus now. Pardon the flashbang, I should have warned you, but get owned. Alright, so our widowhail has 302, okay. We've got a bunch of Quiver bonus emeralds that are at 15. With our Adorned, they turn into 29. We've got 5 of those. So we're going to go 29, 29, 29, 29, 29. And then we've got another one that's a 13% that gives us 25. And then let me move this over here so I don't lose it. And then if you look at these nodes, this is 10, 10, 15, 15, and 30. That makes for 80. Okay. Remember, this is our Quiv bonus. Okay. And then we're going to get out our little calculator like a fucking nerd. And we're going to hit the 302 plus 29. Let's just start that all over. We'll do 29 times 5 equals, okay, plus 302 plus 25 plus 80. This should be 552. Divide this by your 50, because remember, every 50% Quiver bonus we get a level of spark. So we're going to divide this by 50, and we get 11 levels of spark. Ignore the decimal, it doesn't do anything for you. That extra bonus will affect the other stats, it just won't affect the level of spark. So with just the emeralds, we're getting 11 levels of spark, and that's how you calculate Quiver bonus. Super easy, like 3rd grade math. You should have no issues with that. But without this Prism of Belief, which just gave me 3 levels outright, which gives me, again, 14 levels total, because 11 plus 3 is 14. You guys should know that, hopefully. Without this, we were at 38, because a different setup had, I don't think we had one of these. I think we had 2 more emeralds at one point, or we moved some skills around and we had an extra gem, something like that. But you can get to 38 without this Prism of Belief if you move some stuff around. I think it was the Megalo we didn't have. We didn't have this Megalo and we didn't have this Prism, and we got to 38 because 2 extra would give you you go from 11 to 12. But yeah, super simple. It's really daunting if you were to just pull up to the stream and ask me how it works. It's really hard and long-winded to get into it. But yeah, ignore your tooltip. All the budget versions are great. You don't need an Adorned at all. You can do this without an Adorned. I'm going to refer you to some of my viewers' builds because they can personally vouch that it works. I think Dead Rabbit recently dropped a video on the build and he's not using an Adorned. You can check his video out. Great content creator. We love his content over here. He's a friend of the stream. I believe Yang Mal also rolled into one recently. I saw him playing it. I don't know if he's going full force into that one, but yeah, the build's really fun. We've been on it for a really long time. And yeah, this is like my magnum opus. This is my greatest contribution to this game. If you guys have any questions about this build at all, I know everything there is to know about it. Stop by the stream whenever you like. Hopefully I didn't yap your ear off. If you've got any more questions, yeah, let me know in the comments below. It sounds like I'm wrapping the video up. I'm just going to double, triple check my notes. We went over pretty much everything here. Yeah. Also, the one condition outside of obviously Quiver and whatnot is without this flask, the build literally doesn't work. And the reason is we don't have any mana regen. So our total mana recovery per second while we move is 1,127. That's not good enough to just run around and have the mana bar top off 24/7. So we're getting so much mana, which is also essentially your life, back from killing monsters that we become immortal. My effective HP is something like 15k. I can survive a 15k hit, which is nothing in the game can one-shot me outside of the Arbiter pop, which kills just about everybody. But yeah, it's I get asked all the time, is it better than Wand and Focus? Yeah, I don't know. Wand and Focus probably has the most like single target damage in the game, but that's not what this game is about. The game isn't about hitting as hard as humanly possible on like one boss in the game, right? You want your build to be able to do everything. Obviously, my version of the build has got some quality of life features. I've got 35 move speed boots with a Temporalis. A lot of people ask me why I do that, and it's because when you got all these little items on the ground and you want to click them up, and you got to move to them, walking to them like this is a lot slower than walking to them like this, right? So the reason I have move speed boots on still, even though it's less damage, is it's just quality of life. You can pick up shit a lot quicker. But tried to minimize the amount of times I've cursed. I just said shit. That's not good. Outside of that, the clear, infinitely better than wand and focus. It's not even close, and it's because nothing even gets close to you. Like, the projectile speed on your spark works as a defensive layer, where there's like a ward around your character where you're untouchable. Nothing is getting in this circle. It all instantly dies. And yeah, there are no monsters that you have to worry about. There are no map mods that you have to worry about. I don't even read the maps anymore. Nothing on the map is scary. We're not worried about any of it. That's pretty much all I can think of. We've got the budget builds in the description if you want to rock those. Outside of that, yeah, we've pretty much got the Infinity Gauntlet. We've got Prism of Belief. We've got the Megalomaniac. We've got Controlled Metamorphosis. We've got Against the Darkness, and we've got Adorned. So we're walking around doing a Thanos cosplay. And yeah, the build's super fun. And I hope you guys try it. I hope you enjoy it. But again, I don't know how many times I have to reiterate this. It is not cheap. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. It's not cheap. It's end of league. Everything's going to be more expensive. So don't get duped into thinking that you can swap off your little 5 budget build and get this going, because you will suffer. Your 5 budget build is probably better than this at I don't even think you could get this online for 40 div, let alone 5. So keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. When I record the intro to this, I'm going to say that 1,000 times, but yeah, thank you guys so much for the support recently. It means the world to me. We got partnered on YouTube. We're sitting at 407 subscribers on Twitch right now. Ridiculous support. Thank you guys so much for pulling up to the live streams and asking questions. I love answering your questions. If there's any question you have that I don't get to in the comments, please join the Twitch stream or the YouTube stream. We do both at the same time. I answer every single question. I read every single message about the game in general, about anything. If you want to come be funny, whatever, we kick it, we listen to music, we hang out. It's a vibe. But again, thank you guys so much. Finally, we got the video going, but we'll have gameplay going on in the background this whole time. Any questions, let me know. Oh, I said I'd mention the order that you want to buy your uniques. Widowhail, Maelstrom, Ingenuity, Controlled Metamorphosis, everything else is extra. That's the order you want to hit them in. But yeah, we'll have the POB in the description as well. Yeah, it's been an honor. It's been an honor. It's been an honor. It's been an honor. Really, really appreciate you guys messing with the videos. Yeah, let's get out of here. No more wasting your time. See ya.